got to sing it. And it was an honest reaction to it because at the end of the day, who knew? I didn't know that people were going to say, oh, Frankie is their buddy or it's their brother or it's them. You know, to me, it was Frank Sinatra. To them, it's something else. And that's what makes a great song work.
Oh, I think if asked, people would say that's one of the more memorable lines in the catalogue. If, you had to just suddenly produce a few Bon Jovi lines, I'd probably pull that one out, I reckon.
Yeah.
And everyone likes to sing along with that, don't they? And assert that they did it their way.
Oh, yeah. It was a big, empowering song. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Do you typically start a song with some sort of a story or a lyrical concept in mind and then kind of shape the music around that?
Generally speaking, I like to think that you start with a title because I think that the title used to dictate the feel of the song. And so, You Give Love a Bad Name wouldn't feel right as a ballad. It was meant to be that kind of rock song, fun, upbeat, tongue-in-cheek. And Bed of Roses didn't feel like a rock song, So it just depends on where you're at. I can say that in the latter years, there was a song called We Don't Run on Burning Bridges that I wrote with John. And the truth is he was sitting around waiting for me in the studio and basically come up with the roughest of rough kind of a track, which is rare that I would write to a track, and especially something that someone else started, that I didn't pick up the guitar and come in with something. But then I was like, oh, I get this, and the lyric just flowed out. And then I sang it that day in the studio and boom, we had a song, but it was going on Burning Bridges. So at the time I was like, who cares? I'm burning the house down anyhow. So this is the end of my years at Universal Records. Oh man, my life's over and I'm burning the place on my way out. So, that song came, but that was an exception. That's not the rule.
It does seem to me that when you hear a title like Wanted Dead or Alive or Blaze of Glory or something like that you're going to probably take on some kind of character or you've got some kind of narrative in mind for a song like that.
Yeah, and they both did. And both of those songs just sound like a big D, you're tuning down the low E string and you're going to, that's where it's going to live. And whether it was Wanted, I had the idea, went to Richie's house that morning and woke him up and he came up with that lick on the spot and we wrote the song and another song in the same day. The other song didn't live. And with Blaze of Glory, I had the Young Gun script. And so I'd read the script and put my voice inside of Billy the Kid and wrote them the song.
I suppose something like Living on a Prayer takes a kind of third-person view of the story, doesn't it?
And it took three persons to write that song. And God knows, none of us knew what the fuck we had. And, that bass line was developed in the demo, so at a later date. And we were just pounding on the root chord, changing the chords from E minor to C to D, writing the verses. And everybody's contribution was equal and different. And I wanted a storyline. Richie came up with the whoa, everybody had something. And of course, Desmond, everything was equal. And we all walked out of there and I wasn't sure that it was worth anything because it was so different than anything that was on the radio. And it didn't sound like anything else. And, I just sort of went, well, it's okay. And Richie was like, you're a fool. This one's special. But I didn't know, and none of us knew. Anyone says that they knew, didn't know. And then we went in my hometown, there was this crap demo studio and we created the demo there, including that silly key change that just kills me. Son of a bitch, The 25-year-old was like, of course I can do that. The 59-year-old's going, you foolish kid. But that's when it came to be in my hometown in Saraville, when we were all back in that room with the band and worked it up. Bruce Fairburn was there, Huey was there. We developed that bass line, and it all came to be.
We spoke to Desmond Child a little while ago, actually. He was terrific. And he shared his memories of first meeting you and Richie. And I think he said he descended into a basement of a house in New Jersey and worked with you guys, kind of sat around the table. We wondered what you remembered of that encounter.
There was no table. There was no table, and it was next to the washing machine. I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was at the basement bottom of Richie's mother's house. And yeah, we'd met Des at that time. I remember Richie and I, the first 2 records had done okay. We had a couple of top 40 hits, but not number ones. And Fahrenheit did better than the eponymous first album. And then we watched Bryan Adams writing songs for people. And he was having hits. And it was getting him more notoriety. And I was like, maybe we have to do that. But we didn't even know how. And someone told us about Desmond. And I said, I remember a poster of his band hanging outside the dressing room of a club that I played a lot. And that guy had long blonde curly hair and pecs and 3 girls on him, and it was right outside the dressing room. Cut 6 years later, this guy walks in. He's got black hair. It's a crew cut. He's got a beard. He certainly ain't built. I was like, who the fuck are you? You ain't that guy in the poster. But we really hit it off. And the idea was that we intended to write a song or 2 for somebody else. We weren't even telling him that, but the concept was that, well, this guy's got a publishing deal. That's what he does. He's not an artist any longer. So that's how we met him. But then we hit it off, and then our relationship went to 10 layers deeper and personal and as friends. And I'm the godfather of his children. Life built around us and changed all of our lives, the 3 of us. But some of the great memories were like that, sitting in Richie's mother's basement and magically writing Bad Name in Prayer there. Yeah.
You Give Love a Bad Name's not a bad way to start that partnership, is it? I mean...
It wasn't the first song, but it was, there was a song called Edge of a Broken Heart that we ended up using on a soundtrack. That was one of the ones where I said, it's okay. And then Bad Name, and then Prayer was written in New York at someone's apartment. But the relationship, of course, built from there, and, so many great memories.
Those choruses are just bulletproof, aren't they?
They're pretty good. But some of the album tracks, too. Bad Name and Prayer, yes, they're number 1 songs, and we did it. And and I can tell you great stories, and they work. And they still work, and I love singing them. But go and sing Blood on Blood, and you go, that song works. That's not a single. But we knew what we were doing when we sat down to write it, and we did. And it's cool. It still holds up. So there's good memories like that. There's good memories like that.
I think that was the result of a lot of discipline as well, though, wasn't it? Because I read that you were willing to sort of lock yourselves away for 8 hours a day, if that's what it took.
I don't know if that was discipline or desire, but it's what I did when I was a teenage boy by myself. And then when Richie came and joined the band, and then when we met a Desmond or a Billy along the way, or I was still writing by myself. This is just what you did. You woodshed. You write and you write and you write. One thing that we used to do that I don't do as much of now is we would write batches of 10, then call the band in and demo, then write 10 more to try to beat those 10, and then write 10 more to beat those 10. So typically,
His autobiography quite recently, and he mentions how much fun he had writing Midnight in Chelsea with you. How did you find the experience of working with Dave? He's quite a character.
Dave Stewart, boy, I want to say this well enough. He is, and I mean this with all sincerity, he is a saint and an angel because he is so in love with music, but unattached to the nonsense that is behind any of it. All he cares about is the beautiful collaborative effort of being in a room with somebody and getting them to do something that makes you both happy. And I met him, I think this is where I met him. I was in, and I don't know how I got there, but I hope this is right. I came to England to do a movie. It was called The Leading Man in 1996, I'm going to guess. And somehow I ended up at a rented home of Bruce Willis and Demi Moore, and Dave Stewart was there. And we had a wonderful night. I don't remember what got me there, but I was there. And then I hit it off with Dave, and he says, "So what are you doing?" I says, "I'm here to make a movie." You know, he says, "We should get together and write, you know, just play music." And I said, "Of course, I'd love to." And so, you know, on the days off in the film, I went over to his place, and it's all like purple sparkles on the wall. And there was a bedspread made of the Union Jack, and it said Suburbia on it. And to this day, so that's what, 21, 25 years ago, the name of my little side project is The Kings of Suburbia because of that bedspread. And he then told me a story of his getting Bob Dylan to go and busk. And I think there's film footage of him convincing Bob Dylan to go and busk. But that's the kind of guy Dave was. So when he's got in a cab with me going somewhere, and he like takes out a little video camera and starts interviewing me in the back of a cab, you can't help but pour your heart out to this guy because he's that guy that gets you to do stuff that you would never think of doing, but it's not trite, and it's not there to market a record, and it's not a trick. It's just the wonderful collaborative effort. So when he then said to me, because I'd written most of that record by myself too, he said, "Where are you living? What are you doing there? Tell me, you know, what your story is." And that's the lyrics to Midnight in Chelsea. I'd have to look them up right now, but it's literally, "I need to get out of my own skin, and it's midnight in Chelsea. No one knows who I am," and da, 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 da. And the lyrics